one to do the presentation?
You are, yeah.
Okay.
You're going to take over, and we're now recording. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to day 4 of Cyberweek. This is our busiest day of the week. We've got a bunch of great presentations, but front and center is my good friend, Andy Lee, who has been just an invaluable partner to me all the way along in educating me about everything that's going on in China. I think Andy, I often joke is like my kitchen cabinet. I constantly contact him. What's going on here? Can you give me advice about this? Can you give me advice about that? But Andy is a real forward thinker. I mean, I really feel like he's got his eye on what's over the horizon. So I'm very excited about this presentation today. So Andy, I think I'd like to turn it over to you to sort of kick things off and frame up the conversation. But we got a lot of smart people on the call too, so hopefully we'll have time for them to participate and ask questions as well. So thank you so much for taking the time, and why don't you kick us off?
Okay, thank you very much, Colin. It's really a very good. Thank you very much for inviting me to be in this platform, and I also like to do the video things because I have been doing this for past almost 6 months, and I really feel it's almost like in the real classroom or the stadium. So I like it, and today I like to share with all of you my research in the AI-driven ODR and also the relevant risk that posed by this AI module when it's applied to the ADR process. So I'm going to do the, I have a, let me see.
Great, looks good. We can see your screen.
How do I share my screen?
You are sharing your screen. Yep, we can
see.
Oh,
I'm
right
sharing
now.
Screen. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So let me get my.
So I will say, as Andy's pulling up his presentation, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat, and we'll stack them up as things come to mind, and then we'll address them at the end.
So the background of this research is this research was that we have been seeing in the past maybe 4 or 5 years, the all kinds of intelligent digital system has been applied to the dispute resolution process, from very beginning to process the documents intelligently to all the way to how to correctly or intelligently implement the solution. So you can see almost the AI technology in almost every single process of this whole cycle, from submit the dispute all the way to how to implement the solution. So this, I think the market is driving that, the technology is driving that, and also a lot of people like the forward thinking, like Colin, like Ethan, and all those people on today's panel, they all, I think, start to push for this, and this is great. I think the AI is really taking off in the dispute resolution area. But now we start to see once this become more and more implemented in all the system, we also start to see some risk. And so today I will also talk about what's the risk with AI driving ODR solution. So I call it digital security. And so first of all, we are very close to real AI. And this was my meeting with this Sophie, who was the first AI robot, was awarded a Saudi Arab citizenship. So he is actually a person in Saudi Arab. So he can answer all the questions. I had a very good conversation with her, and she's really smart. And I even asked her about what stock to buy. So she gave me a very good answer. And so these kind of things happens very quick. And this was like last, I think, almost last December. And by 1 year, we have some kind of people says like 1 year in AI industry is like a 100 year in the technology evolution. So it's very fast. So today, I think she can probably do even more. And so this is, human-like intelligence is really getting evolved very fast. And what she can do a lot of things. I think she can definitely, by my conversation with her, she can solve all my legal questions. I ask her a lot of personal legal questions and some of contract issues, some landlord issues. She knows everything. So I mean, it's much better than my legal counsel, because I have a attorney help me with some of disputes. So she's actually doing very good. And the only thing is she doesn't feel my passion. She doesn't feel she doesn't sympathize with me. And she's very too rigid and too idealist. So, but she can do almost everything I ask her. And so for dispute resolution, first of all, we see the all the procedures online. So you can submit things online, you can do registration online, you can file case online. So everything is online. That's very important. So we have everything digitalized. And then we see computer-aided mediation. There are a lot of applications. And before it's empirical, it's based on the we call it data mining. And now people start to move to a machine learning, and even in the recent months, we start to implement the deep learning and out of machine learning. So it's the whole idea is we try to train the AI mediator very much behave like a human, like a very well-knowledgeable human mediator, and that's number one goal. And I think that's achieved last year. Now we try to go one more step. We want the AI mediator can go beyond human thing, because human, they have a limit on the knowledge. They, for example, some people only know real estate industry or only know the financial industry, but we can train the AI mediator knows every industry. Particularly, we can also train the AI mediator know how to understand the cultures, religions, and also the political system. So they know when you applied, when you try to implement a resolution, what kind of problems may occur. So that's where we push the AI mediator words. And then there is a computer-aided proposition. Should be actually before the AI mediator. This is basically what we do is by using the data mining and the empirical algorithm to try to come up with some optimal machine think, some kind of optimal resolution for both parties. And this is very empirical. So this one is already done. Now this is inside of the AI mediator. Then we do performance tracking. So because now there are many people doing the AI mediator. Like I have my own AI mediator. Maybe Colin someday will have your own AI mediator. So everybody can create their own AI mediator. You train themselves. You train the mediator yourself. You use all the data you can collect. And so how then again, just like a lawyer, there are so many law firms. We still have to pick which one is the one when we have some dispute we want to go to. So that is where the performance tracking. So because they are all online, they are all machine, they are all intelligent digital systems. So we can develop a very dynamic performance tracking system to evaluate which AI module is doing better than others. Or we come up with I think 25 or 6 or 26 criteria to evaluate the AI mediator, so that people can get some idea, just like they buy a car or they buy some sort of merchandise. So they know all those index, all those criteria, and they make a decision. And furthermore, we can do legal risk alerting. So once we have all those things, and I think we are almost have everything. And now we can go one more step. That is currently, recently, I had a conversation with Alibaba's top governance officer. I said that I can offer you a legal risk alerting system based on the all this, based on my AI mediator, because we have so many knowledge about all the disputes. So I can now tell you when you bring up a new policy or when you bring up a new promotion, I can tell you what is the possible risk in dispute, in the possible legal problem or any like a dispute. So we can give them that, but no, he turned me down. He said they are working on that. So that's Alibaba always say they're working on that. So another one is vertical to horizontal approach under system enforcement of resolution and the human mediator. Okay, so these two mainly to we want to construct an ecosystem once the AI mediator come in, because we have AI mediator, we have a human mediator, we have court, we have all kinds of other things, and how we all work together, we make sure everybody has their own best skill. So we have to come up with an ecosystem that to be inclusive for all the skills. Finally, where the human mediator will be, I think they will be behind the AI. So I assume every human mediator today, maybe in 10 years, they will have an AI mediator in front of him, and his job is to train the AI mediator, and so that the AI mediator is the one going to face all the, going to deal with all these customers or all the disputes. The human mediator will become a trainer. So now we're going to talk about very briefly about the AI mediation work we are doing, and also the the risk we start to realize. And the goal and the mission, and it's very simple. At the very beginning, our goal is to come up with a very intelligent, optimal resolution for both parties. And we use a rating system. We call the dispute satisfaction index. So we just dynamically measure that index to say where to reach the maximum satisfaction for both parties. That's our number. That's our first job we did about 5 years ago. Then the second step we did is AI mediator. Is actually we use machine deep learning and neural network and build a reasoning system that it can actually it's a chat. Is an intelligent chat. It can chat with both parties and try to guide them towards some sort of optimized resolution. But that one is more dynamic. The first optimized resolution is static. It's something we write in on the paper and deliver to them. And then in the AI mediator, then we consistently change the optimized resolution, because we start to getting information from both parties and start to understand this guy, this disputed party, what he's thinking, where he's trying to go, or what his current problem. We try to guess. We try to use our vast, big database, try to find out which case is most close to this one, and then consistently changing the optimized resolution. So that's our second stage. Third stage now is we try to make this one more be able to handle things beyond the just chat. We want them to understand how to implement that in particular country, in particular religions, and how to do this with the international court, how to do this. We try to make the AI mediator going beyond the mediation, just going how to implement the resolution. So try to do the whole life cycle things. And so this is our goal and the mission. And so what we come up with for process control for the AI ODR things. One is through online submission. Then we do instant AI mediation. That means we generate a intelligent proposal that we think is optimized for the both parties without hear them. Just saw the submission, and we come up with a solution. And because Alibaba did something like this at the very beginning, about 10 years ago, and they start to find 30 to 40% of disputes can be resolved by this. And they just need a quick solution. And so that's where we are. And then we, if that doesn't work, we start to dispute the case to the to the different AI or human mediator. So that's where we get into the chat room, and the chat room is basically AI multilingual units to conduct, to facilitate the chat between human or between the like with a human mediator or with AI mediator. So that's where they come up with some kind of resolution. So once the resolution is done, we do the online notary service to basically stamp on the resolution, so make sure we all agreed. And if it's not done, then they go to court, go to all the other legal means. And then once that is resolved and is notarized, we do the rating for this whole process by looking at how much time they take, how the satisfaction and what's the efficiency. There are a bunch of index the criteria we have developing to rate the to track and rate the mediator, an AI or human. And then we talk a little bit more about the how the ODR is enabled by the AI. And so AI driving, so we just get some questions. AI driving ODR, first of all, whether it's going to replace the lawyer or arbitrator, I think it seems like it will, particularly in the paralegal section. In the very beginning, they prepare the case and to understand the case and to come up with some idea. That part, AI is definitely the we haven't seen any exception. They are much better than the human one. And then how the mediation of the AI participation different from human operation. And I think that is where we have realized that AI is no passion, no sympathy, and no politic, and it's too neutral and too idealist. So when it's applied to some very religion-based or very humanity-based things, their results is too rigid. So I'm not sure how that's going to play into our current ODR system. And also the ethic, you have to tell them the ethic. I mean, if you miss some ethic criteria, the AI module will not automatically gain that ethic from his experience, because everything we ask the AI is doing is something we ask them to do. So they will not develop some like very good caricature or something without we are putting into it. And so what's the urgency to use AI dispute resolution? I think it's when you deal with a different political system, different country, and different legal structure, I think it's very important to come up with, to have somebody, the both sides recognize a mediator. And another thing is that to have this mediator with a knowledge of the different culture and different system. So that's kind of like a push the complicate cross-border mediation, need a quick solution, need something very fast to AI-based. I think that's almost like you cannot find other solution. We cannot even imagine other solution. And so what we have been using this for, and recently is the dispute warning. I just said we try to after the AI module gain enough knowledge, we try to make it to give us some warning. When now we are even trying to make it to the consumer when they buy a property, when they buy something, when they get into some kind of agreement, we want to the AI mediator, our AI mediator, to warn something, or give a warning, give a list of warning to the. But of course, this can use it for the commercial part. And as I said, I talked to Alibaba and said they're already working on that. The mutual interpretation and the mediation plan. So this one is basically help the mediator at a very the beginning stage, like when you start to collect the information, start to come up with some kind of plan. So this is more like advice tool. So it can be people can use this to like a mediator, a current mediator or early lawyer can use this as a intelligent support tool to help you understand the cases. And the choice of mediation procedure. This is intelligent advisor tool to the lawyer or to mediator. Then the best implementation and the of the mediation, best implementation of the solution. This again is a support tool for we can use as support tool. Of course, we can use as a solution in the whole intelligent ODR. So this is the structure what we are currently built, the AI plus law, and we just we get further. Now our AI mediator, we try to train them with all the 24 million cases from China Supreme Court. They put on the internet so people can share and look at the data. We are trying to let the machine go through all of them, and we also let the machine go through all the other countries cases we can find and just train it. So this AI mediator now is not only understand how to get people talk to each other and lead them to some solution, also understand the legal consequence of the resolution or each one of this dispute party. So I think it's very important to have to equip the AI mediator with all the laws. So at least they don't have to bring that out, but they have to know that. And so the AI system now we are put together is a rule-based decision support, has an expert system and a knowledge-based, that's with a deep learning, and has an intelligent interface and it's case-based reasoning. So we basically try to looking for the case that most close to the case we are handling. And then it's a multi-agent system. So many people can participate, not only two-party. One mediator can be 20 mediator and two party. So you can have all kind of flexibility in the chat room. And this is the tools we currently develop that can apply to this process. And some of them can use individually as the consulting tool for the mediator or lawyer at a certain stage. And so for the function wise, then this is something I think I skip. It's basically how we build this whole system. And then we can make this AI enabled ODR. It's just like this. They have all kinds of things. These are basic features we have built. Now we are starting to extend more stuff. So then we get into the case distribution and the information service. So this is where we start to collect the case and to dispute the case to either AI mediator or to the human mediator. And the whole idea is that we try to find the best match, and we try to get because there are some people maybe are very busy or they don't have time. So this whole distribution system have knowledge of everyone to see where they are and what's their workload, and so how we use them at the best situation. And then we have this supervision and the administration of the platform. So we want to monitor this system, make sure we have this 26 criteria to basically see how the mediation process is going well. And we don't want them to, sometimes the machine may, even for the deep learning, they may go beyond the boundary, or they just have some malfunction, or they just even cracked in the middle. So we have to find out that and to alert the user and bring back the system. So this whole, I will later on talk about even more about this part of our digital security, how to make sure the system won't crash, or the system always available and the system always reliable. So that is the thing we built. And then we can further down to the lawsuit, to the legal part. That I think we probably will not talk today. So we try to I try to get this AI module to the court, just to let them use it in the court process. So finally, we talk about the digital security and the trust enabler. First of all, what's the AI mediation? What's the risk for AI mediation? So we have, these are some typical risk. And privacy. Privacy is one problem. And if you don't protect your data, and if you don't make your interface smart, and you may have the data privacy infringement, and the people, their entity or their case material um, maybe misused. So this is number one. Number two is a virus intrusion. I mean, there are so many viruses, and there are a lot of viruses. They are just like the Trojan horse. They just stay in your system and collect information and send it out. So those are very dangerous, and particularly for the legal process and or dispute resolution. You don't want to release information for the party without their consent. And also, we need to make sure some information are confidential. So the virus can destroy all of that. Then we have a system risk. And in system risk, one of the most, I mean, like system availability, everybody knows. System availability is like when the system crashed in the middle of dispute resolution, how we bring them back and make sure all the data, all the information are still there. And so everybody knows that. Malfunction, people knows that's basically is a bug in your system, and it's gave the wrong answer, or sometimes at some particular situation give the very unrealistic resolution. So that is we need to resolve. We need to resolve by all kind of testing, all kind of training, or some sort of report system for the malfunction. So that's control. There is one very different risk that from the ordinary digital system is we call an unethical algorithm, because the algorithm is where control how you get the optimized resolution. And that algorithm is very easily, if the programmer is not very ethical, they may add some different factors, political and preference, religion's preference, like race, racial preference. So they can put anything in there. You don't even know that. And they just put a little bit. That's will affect maybe hundreds, thousands of people. So how do we verify the algorithm is ethic? And that's a big problem. That's not related with ODR. It's almost related with all the AI algorithm. And because I'm also working on the AI system for the medical device, they have the same problem, and they don't know how to evaluate the algorithm, because you don't see algorithm, particularly for today's AI. The algorithm is basically a machine learning, and it's a bunch of like 10 millions, maybe billions of matrix, and you don't know where to look. You don't know where they hide that little religion's preference or the in there. So it's very difficult. That's something we also need to figure out. And the digital security in AI mediation. And my definition is this: all the security concern because of the introduction of digital system to the mediation process. So what I try to define the digital security problems, digital security in the AI mediation is when we try to adopt a digital system, particularly AI system, to the mediation process, it may bring a lot of risk. And all this risk together we call the digital security. And then currently we already identify the following risk, and there are more. We probably don't. We will start to realize that while we are using it more and more. But now I can see those following. One is the internet security and the risk by interconnection to the public network. So when you connect this one to Google, to the other outside of internet, you may bring up some risk, because then, first of all the outside information may not be correct. And the second of all, people may use this connection to attack your system. So the internet security is number one. Number two is the security, system security. System security is as I said, it could be the malfunction, could be improper operation, could be the other system bug. So that's system security. I put algorithm security separately because I think this is very important, and also it's very difficult to resolve. The algorithm security is the risk of algorithm ethical principle. So we don't. I mean, now still today, I don't know how to do that, how to manage this risk. And the operator security is basically we people who operate the AI mediator need some qualification and also need some sort of basic credibility. And so that's why I was thinking maybe in the future, the operator of AI mediator is a human mediator, so that in that one, this operator inherit all the ethic principle for human mediator. Otherwise, you cannot get anyone to run this AI system for you, because there are something maybe need to track, need to stop, need to reboot, and this decision make has to be very ethic, has to be with certain knowledge of the ODR process. The trusted security. Trusted security is basically for digital information, they process all the data, but all those data, whether they are credible, whether they are their source, they are from credible source, and so there are many things with trust. I think it's something we try to build a trusted system so they can share information among them, and so that's called trust security. Then there are other risks from adoption of digital system, and we call them all digital security. And system security and trackability. I just use a few example to show you what those stages of security are. The system security and the trackability is a time-stamped security assurance. So we need to make sure the mediation process is time-stamped. That means we should know which process is before which process. Because in the digital system, once you put it in the database, you don't know who is first, who is behind, and the process, the data stamp can be easily changed with people with a little system knowledge. So we need to have a timestamp security assurance, and we need to record misconduct and traceable. So that means anything that we need to make sure that the operator or the mediator, they may use some function improperly, and so just like a pilot, and we need to all their operation, and we need to have a black box to record everything in the whole process for the mediator, regardless it's AI or human, so that we can always go back to see whether this whole process has any problem, has any ethic, or violates some principle. And all documents should be immutable, and that makes record tamper-proof. So we need to be able to make this all the information undeniable, and all the information that complete, and we cannot miss anything, or we cannot have some sort of part is damaged. So that the documentation, the bookkeeping has to be, the record has to be very precise. And then we need to for the efficiency and the simplicity, and also very straightforward process. So those are the what we call the system security and the trackability, and the data security and the trustworthy. So this is something I was saying, and we need to make sure the data is protected, and from every stage, from storage at database, at the interface when you input the data, or at the display when you output the data. So all those stage you want to make sure the data is protected, and you are not going to get people cannot, their privacy cannot be exposed in any of this stage. So this is pretty difficult, particularly when you do display, and people may just peek to the to your screen and get your data. So those are all the stuff we need to figure out how to manage. And then there is a trustworthy. trustworthy means how do we know the data is clean, is credible, is from a creditable source, and that is a very important work we have to manage. And so we were thinking to build a community of trust. So like for example, we can start from all the mediator in the encoder, and we can share our data. We sign the data integrity agreement, so we can share data among us. Then we start to create a community of the creditable information. And so management of the digital security were involved in those things, and how to make sure data is undeniable, how to make sure the document is time-stamped, and the operation audit, and the immutable, smart contract, transparency, and guarantee trust without third-party control. So those are the things we think are contributed to the management of digital security. And we give an example, the database of Untrustworthy. This is something we built, Untrustworthy users. So this is basically, we record people who like the dispute party who is not comply to the resolution. So they all signed the resolution saying we're going to settle like this, but eventually one of them didn't go through. So that is something we need to record, and we need to record all his information, and we need to keep those information undeniable and complete, and also be able to always track back. So this is one example we have done. So the summary is that current ODR, currently the mainstream is still ADR online. That's what we have still think. And the future ODR is AI mediated online dispute resolution. So the future ADR is you can see the AI is in place of a human being doing a lot of ODR process. And the mediator will train their own AI mediation units. And the algorithm is very important. Algorithm is owner. So in the future, between mediator really is what their AI module, what algorithm their AI module is using. See, this algorithm is not something. It's not a formula. It's basically machine learning, and depends on how many data you can collect, and you feed it to the machine, and machine build this kind of knowledge for you. That color algorithm. It's not really just a formula. So Neuer has their own AI, and most important thing, success of AI ODR is based on management of digital security. So if the digital security is not well managed, the AI will not be successful. So the technology infrastructure, what are we going to, what do we need? What technology we need to make this whole thing successful? Number one is technology for management of digital security. This one is still in discussion, and also still, I think it's undeveloped. So there are a lot of opportunity to develop a technology to manage the digital security. Number two, deep learning. This is how to train AI. Number three, digital big data for analytical advisory. This is a very basic function for AI mediator. Then the number four is a social security system for enforcement. So the number four is how do we build a trusted community that people there can always honor their agreement. So that's what we think in order to make the AI ODR work. This is what we need. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andy. Wow, there's so much to chew on here. And I'm sure people are going to be eager to ask you lots of questions. One of the things that I think is really important is your focus on security. All the different kinds of security. If you could go back a few slides, I thought that was fascinating to think about algorithmic security. Is that the slide? Maybe. Yeah, here it is. Internet security, system security, algorithm security, and operator security, and trust security. I think that's really, this is a more sophisticated way of thinking about security in AI mediation and ODR more broadly than I feel people have talked about before. Can you just address that as well? And this is amazing to me. Obviously, Chris Draper has talked a lot about the use of blockchain in ODR. And I think the idea of an unalterable digital record that does what you have on your next slide, the trackability. So as everything happens in a case, it's all tracked in an unalterable log, and people can go back and consult that log. I think that this is really, this is cutting edge in terms of trust and safety architecture in Silicon Valley, but I don't feel like we've seen it applied in ODR. So that's really, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. Currently, the reason why we don't see a lot of talk about the security in the AI mediation is because the AI mediation hasn't been used extensively, and we currently people may just use some your convenience tool to process their data, to make a table, to draw some curves, and those something even though they are already have risk. For example, the data security risk, they already have that, but they just didn't realize that because after all, it's still human in there, and the people, if somebody get blamed, is the mediator gets blamed. So they are not going to blame the PPT or the PowerPoint or the Word because they feel that we are facing the human. But once you start to have the dispute, dispute parties or the public facing the AI mediator, then they start to question those. This is ask those questions: how you protect my data, how you protect how do I know you are fair? How do I know you are unbiased? So those things will be asked. But now they just ask the human. So humans say, oh, we always good.
Well, and our personal trust that we have with a human, when we interact with them, we get a sense of, do I trust this person? When they make a representation to me that they're going to protect my information, I say, okay, well, this is a trustworthy person. I can see their reputation. But an AI mediator doesn't have that same kind of human connection. So we're going to need algorithmic pieces to ensure that people have trust in those actors. So I find that fascinating. It's definitely something I want to spend more time thinking about. But let me open it up more broadly. Does anyone have any comments or questions on Andy's presentation that they'd like to raise?
So I have a question. As somebody who is coming more late to the ODR side of ADR, what's something that I could integrate into my practice or a way to be helping support AI mediation in the future?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. In fact, the AI mediation started with ADR, started from an ADR procedure, because that is where there are more procedure, more mature procedure, more mature process. And so at the very first AI module we developed is basically to process the filing and the process to make tables and make the pro and con of things. So that's where we started. And then we, it's started with all those convenient tools for people who do mediation. And then we start to find all the information are becoming more and more online. And the ODR become a very very obvious trend of the whole mediation process. So the AI, because it's a digital nature, and automatically kind of like start to address the integrated with the online dispute resolution platform, but in a very different format. Like, for example, in Alibaba, they go by post-sale support at the beginning, and in the internet court, they go by the pre-filing mediation. And so they're all they all look differently. But if you look at the nature of this system, is basically to upload, to get the information online, and process the information based on all the rules, then interpret the information based on the knowledge. And now they move one step further and guide the mediation process to the resolution, guide the chat, guide the negotiation towards the solution. So that's how this whole thing come up.
Yeah, Whitney, if I could just piggyback onto that. I think that right now, a lot of this AI stuff is kind of, it seems a little theoretical to me out there. You know, people are doing a lot of experimentation with it. I think one of the things that I aspire to do at mediate.com is to take some of these tools and make them very practical and make them usable by individual mediators in individual circumstances. So I'm trying to keep an eye on everything that's going on with AI. I posted a link in the chat to something that's happening up in Canada. It's something called My Open Court. And we're actually on utilizing some of those same techniques. I think what we see AI being used for practically is helping people with kind of case evaluation, or giving them a sense of what their case might be worth. Another thing that is very powerful now is digital translation. It's getting really good, and also audio transcription, where you can talk and it'll automatically translate it into text. That's all AI. That's practical, the practical use of AI. But hopefully we're turning it into tools that people could just use every day, and it's kind of like magic, like you don't have to really worry about what's going on under the hood. So I think it's going to be a while before this stuff is used every day, like it's in every mediator's toolbox. But the reality is it's really happening, and there are projects out there that are showing how it can work practically. So I think to a certain extent, stay tuned. I don't think this is something that mediators need to be thinking about, how am I going to integrate this tomorrow? But it's good to keep an open mind about how you could utilize it. So that's just my sense, to piggyback on what Andy said. I see we have a question from Jeff. Jeff, do you want to pipe in?
Sure, Andy. Wonderful presentation. Really enjoyed the focus on trust and so forth. Really important. I did have a question about how you, in the areas of services and types of cases, you mentioned cross-border e-commerce. I was curious what the thinking was, why cross-border e-commerce is going to be a big area, because you have, at least presently, multiple laws, multiple cultures. It'd be an interesting and challenging situation, and much of e-commerce is very small potatoes kinds of dispute resolution. So just curious what the thinking is behind that.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Thanks, Jeff. And I think that's where I originally came from. The cross-border e-commerce has been always a problem when you have the dispute, because it's non-distance, it's different legal system, and the things are too small. But it happens. I mean, that's actually the cross-border e-commerce is, first of all, it's growing very fast. It's almost become a very big part of international trade. And today, I think it's like 5 years ago, we predict like by 2025, it's going to be 15% of the international trade. But now they start to think by 2025, it's 50% of the international trade. And we know WTO is basically to resolve the dispute for the traditional international trade. But for the cross-border e-commerce, I mean, currently there is no mechanism to resolve the dispute. And so that it's once the company get into cross-border e-commerce, the first thing they have to do is to resolve the cross-border dispute resolution. And before last year, I think it's before 2018 or maybe 2017, all the resolution is basically the seller just pay all the money, because they have such a big profit for the cross-border e-commerce, and they can afford to do that. And also the platform do that for you first. If any dispute out of cross-border consumer, and the platform will pay. Or if that platform go back to chasing after the merchant to ask for the money. So that is pretty much all the situation. So when we go to Alibaba, go to like eBay, or go to this China, and I'll go to all those cross-border e-commerce vendors, and once deal with the cross-border, and they always tell you there are not many disputes. But the reason why there are not many, because they're all resolved by this kind of ways. But for the past 2 years, the cross-border e-commerce the profit become very, very thin now. So they cannot afford the traditional way of buy out the disputer. So they have to deal with it. And that is where they start to look at the technology. And the AI definitely understand both side legal system. But for the ODR, basically, the idea is try to lead to a resolution. The resolution usually for the cross-border e-commerce, particularly for the merchant transaction, is either pay some money or return, or pay and return. So it's not a lot of resolution. So because of that, it's relatively easier, and they just need to get the both party have the best satisfaction, optimize the satisfaction index. They internally have that calculation to basically ask both sides this resolution. You're happy. What's your happiness index? Is 70, 80? Then they add it together, and then they try to come up with I think that both parties agree, and then make a resolution. So they are not like the legal one, not like this lawsuit, cross-border lawsuit. That's going to be a messy. We haven't really figured out how to do that. But currently, for merchant, for the cross-border e-commerce, and just sell the merchant, because the outcome is very simple. There are only 3 or 4 type of outcome. So all we need to do, all the AI need to do is to get them to one of those outcomes. And then the platform take this outcome, take the AI reasoning things, send through an email, send it to the merchant to say, let's do it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You know, Bill asked a question in the chat, Andy, or maybe made a comment. He said, Andy says we human mediators will all create our own AI mediators and deploy them. What will we be deploying them on? To use with clients or to battle others in our own personal disputes? And Ethan and I just did an article for Negotiation Journal with Jan Martinez and with Leah Wing, talking about agent-based negotiation, where it's a similar concept where we would create essentially a software agent that would come in. We would give them the information about our dispute, and that agent would go off and then essentially try and resolve the case, maybe working with other humans or working with other agents. And this notion of agents negotiating and then coming back to us and saying, hey, this is the best resolution I could get for you. Is this acceptable? And then mediators may have agents, and there may be also agents from third-party trust organizations that want to monitor the activities in resolutions. I think that actually parallels a lot of what's happened in the financial sector, where now nobody actually engages in trades, humans calling up someone else and saying, hey, I want to buy your shares. It's all computers that are doing it, but the computers are creating the agents that are going out and then doing the trades and then monitoring all the outputs and approving and rejecting things. So maybe that's where it's headed, and we do need to come up with a platform that can allow these agents to interact. I don't know if battle is the right word, but yeah, I mean, to interact and negotiate in a structured way. What do you think about that, Andy?
I think the agent negotiation or agent-based negotiation, I think that's very cool, and definitely is something very kind of like similar to what I suggest. But for the mediator, what I'm thinking for on ODR, in the ODR community, the mediator eventually will be an agent or a digital symbol on the connected world, on the digital, on the internet community. It's not now. If the current mediator that we all perceive as a person, that's because of ADR. Where we come from, the traditional, the non-court dispute resolution. We the people go there, then we try to move. That's why I said the current ODR is just a move ADR online. So that is a transition. But eventually, the mediator will get the information from internet, will communicate with the disputer, with the dispute party over internet, and discuss all the discussion, all the resolution, everything is on internet. So in that sense, the mediator is not you don't know the mediator is I mean, you don't have to know what kind of person he is, and it could be a robot. And so in that, when that happened, and you put an intelligent module in there or not, people don't really know. People just know this is NDD, and I may partially use an AI module to help me, partially use my own instinct. People don't know, or I just when I'm on vacation, I just put this answer machine in there with all the intelligent things. People don't know. People thought that's me. So that is what I think eventually the mediator's job will train their mediator module, because what are you going to your interface to the outside the world, to your customer, to your client, is a digital interface. It's not like a currently personal interface.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, you said that a part of that development is machine learning on large data sets. Is that going to advantage certain groups who have more access to data?
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely is the case. Particularly, for example, like currently on the cross-border e-commerce or even the e-commerce world, I don't even suggest people to do it, because Alibaba, eBay, Amazon has a incredible amount of data, and any individual for us never be able to catch it. So there's no way you don't really need to do that, because they have all the things. You may sell them some modules, sell them some experience, or help them to train their system, but you cannot really do something to compete with them because they have a lot of data. But for some vertical area, maybe we are able to work with some parties to get access to the information so that we can train our mediator, train our AI mediator. And also from now on, we need to collect our own data. And it's not really for the machine learning. 1,300 cases are kind of can already make the for any fixed set parameter of cases. That means kind of similar cases. 1,300 data set cases were trained pretty smart AI module. So you don't really need, you don't really have to have a 1 billion data, but for fixed parameters, that means, for example, real estate, the rental dispute or apartment rental dispute, some kind of, you drove down all the way down to that case, and with that case, with all the parameter fixed, and you just need the 1,300 data to get the machine well trained.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I think, Bill, your comment is essential. Who owns the data? How do we police the data? What bias is in the data? How do we evolve the data? I think there's a ton of questions, because AI is fundamentally about the data. But I think Andy's right. We don't need 1 billion cases to kick one of these systems off. We can start and then build our data set over time. I'm looking at the clock, and I think we're at the end of our hour. Are there any? I think Whitney asked a great question. And I think we need to do other sessions on this too. Is there currently a way in Andy's system for the AI or the participants to elevate an issue to a human mediator? That's something Ethan has written quite a bit about too, is the relationship between the third party and the fourth party. And I think Chuck said, as Andy brilliantly illuminates, maybe we are really at best headed toward what might be called integrated dispute resolution: diverse, inclusive, equitable, and empowering. And I think I share that aspiration. Hopefully that's where all of this is headed. So Andy, why don't I give you the last word to kind of wrap us up? Where do you think we're going from here? What's the next step?
I think the next step is every mediator need to be conscious of AI development and try to think which role we play. We play a trainer, or we play we can become a more intelligent. I mean, we have to figure out where we play. I think that's very important for all the mediator. I mean, we don't have the mediator don't have to do mediation. We can do other things to somehow facilitate the mediation process. But our eventual goal is to make the dispute resolution more efficient and fast. So as long as that, I mean, we need to figure out where is the best role for human mediator to play.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much, Andy. This has been a wonderful presentation. Thank you, everyone, for participating. If you can join me in giving a round of applause to Andy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got the recording, and it should be up by the end of the day. And if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to send them direct to Andy. I'm sure he's going to be eager to respond. And Andy, please put a reservation in your calendar right now for next year's Cyber Week, because we're going to want you to come back and present on the same thing and update us all. So thank you, everyone. We have a very busy day at Cyber Week, lots of other sessions today, but please don't forget our social hour tonight at 6 p.m. I think it's 6 p.m. Pacific. Bring the beverage of your choice. We'll be pouring virtual quarantinis for everyone. Please, if you can spare the time, please join us. And Andy, thank you again for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Take care, everyone. See you soon.
Okay, bye.